Good evening and welcome to the Hemingway Jones live fountain pen show. Hello to everyone. Welcome to our little corner of the internet where we talk about fountain pens, inks, journals and journaling, and just about everything and anything to keep you inspired this evening. And very nice to see you all. I have a very exciting show for you this evening. An idea I've been kicking around, and it was all based on the fact that I have been revisiting some of my classic fountain pens, the ones that I bought 25 plus years ago in some cases, or certainly 20 plus years ago, including the pen that I've been using lately, which I'll show you. I am just jazzed, just over the moon on the Curating lately. This has been my go-to pen this week, but it's sharing its little sleeping bag with another pen as well, the Montblanc 147 in Bordeaux. So this interesting fountain pen coupled with this one. Lots of fun. They have been by my side all this week. I gave the Edson a rest. The Curating's kind of like a mini Edson. It's sort of like a cousin to it. Actually, it's literally a cousin to it. So I gave that pen a rest, and I've been using these two, and I'm having a blast with them. So those are my pens I'm using. I want to say hello to everyone, especially the wonderful members of this channel. Thanks for all the thumbs up. I see them flying by. I really appreciate each and every one of you coming here to visit, to talk, to spend time in the chat every Tuesday night that I do the show, which is most Tuesday nights. I'm not sure about the end of this month with Christmas. I'm still working on that, but we are going to get some stuff up for you regardless. So lovely to see everyone. I want to do a couple of housekeeping things, and then we're going to get right into the main topic. I'm not going to waste any time tonight. No kind of stringing you along. We're just going to get right into it. But first, I do want to mention that this Thursday at noon, as often is the case, I have a new fountain pen video for you all to enjoy. And the topic is, can you travel with a $1,000 Montblanc fountain pen? With kind of the thought being, should you travel with a Montblanc $1,000 fountain pen? And I seek to answer that question. And it's really kind of a part travelogue, part personal experience, and part how well a precious pen does if it's out in the field with you and you're traveling in Italy, in this case, with a particular pen that's kind of pricey. What are the things you're thinking about? What are the considerations? Is it casual? Is it something a little bit more troubling? So I think you'll really enjoy it, and not least of which because it has some of the most stunning B-roll you have ever seen on this channel. So a lot of a lot of video of me in Italy doing things, mostly journaling and writing with my pens and whatnot, in Rome, Florence, and Venice. So I think you will enjoy this video, and that's this Thursday. I also want to invite you to please subscribe if you're watching the show and you haven't subscribed. Looks like I'm knocking on 20,000 people on this journey with us, which is very exciting. I'd love to get to 20,000. It's a nice roundabout number. So if 700 of you would just please hit the subscribe button, I promise to be entertaining and not to bore you. That's kind of the mission of this channel. I often say from the pen, we can go anywhere. The purpose of my channel is entertaining you, maybe informing you a little bit, maybe kicking around some different ideas, looking at fountain pens from a unique perspective. I reach pretty far sometimes. I think I get most of the way there. I do enjoy making these, and for me, this is a creative outlet, and I'm just really happy I can share it with all of you. So thank you. If you would subscribe, I'd appreciate it. And we have membership as well. If you want to support the channel even more, keep the lights on. The lights are glowing bright tonight, thanks to many of our lovely members who are here. We're still doing the Pen Pal group for Cognoscenti and Illuminati members. I'm going to talk a little bit about that at some point, just sort of how pen pal groups work, and really the biggest thing is to have fun and not to feel any stress about it. I mean, it's there to enjoy, but we're going to do that another night. Tonight, we're talking about things I wish I had known 30 years ago when I took on the task, if you will, or let's say no, I would say I began my journey. I think that's a little bit more accurate. It was about 30 years ago where I decided to get into fountain pens, and I really started to think about this week as I was planning for the show, exactly what that meant and the sort of things I wish I knew then that I know now, especially after doing this serious, not that serious, enjoyable, but serious in that it's sort of an academic pursuit of mine, fountain pens, inks, and journals. As I share it with you all, I want it to be accurate, interesting, entertaining. So I do dive into different pens and try to learn everything about them that I can to share with you. So we have quite a bit to kick around. Thanks for the thanks, you guys. I'm going to keep an eye on who's here. I see the chat's going strong. Honestly, we have such a vibrant community here at this channel. The chat is always interesting, so try to catch it live if you can. Participate in the chat with all these wonderful people. I think you'll have a blast. And if you can't, you catch the replay, then comment. I do see all the comments and I do my best to reply. Okay, enough of me. Let's get into these topics. Voice is always under stress, so I'll do my best as always. Okay, so I wanted to get kind of touch on all these points of the various things that I really wish I knew at the beginning. And a very large one is, I wish I had cherished my first fountain pen. And I don't just mean because I destroyed it, which is true. If you don't know the story, I'll tell you. My first serious fountain pen, after trying some pilot varsities and whatnot back in the day, was a Waterman pen, which the make I'm not entirely sure of, or excuse me, not the make, the model I'm not entirely sure of. Though the pen still exists, I believe it's in my eaves. I believe it's in a box I put in the eaves when I moved into this house some 10 years ago, and I just haven't gone in search of it. But I'd like to have the pieces. I might try to put it back together. But I wish I had cherished my first fountain pen. Not the least of which because I broke it, but also because it was my first, and it would have been so lovely to have that. Because pens like the Curating, which I've had for 20 years or more, or pens like my Sheaffer Legacy, which I've had an equal amount of time, they now mean so much to me. My Cross Apogee, I've had a long time. My Mont Blanc 149, I've had for over a decade. That means a lot to me, but more because it's connected with my marriage and my life and having my child and all the things that it was there for. When I got married, it was with me. Do we have to sign our marriage licenses? Let's say we do. If I signed the marriage license or the marriage certificate or whatever it was, it would have been with that pen because it was with me. So the older ones, my first pen just would have meant a lot. And I hope I can find it. I hope to at least salvage the nib. So I would say, if you are beginning your fountain pen journey and you've tuned into this to kind of key in on some things you might want to think about, cherish that first pen, take care of it, hold on to it. One day you're going to feel very sentimental about it. Also, I like to throw up this disclaimer because I know sometimes people get very upset in the comments. I don't know why. We talk about fountain pens. There's no reason to get upset about anything. Just disagree if you want. Be polite. I'd be happy to engage in any kind of debate with you. Okay, so, I just want to throw that out there. All right, so here's the second thing that I really wish I had thought more about at the beginning, and something I try to rein in now. In fact, I am reining myself in. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in a second. I wish I limited myself to about 3 or 4 fountain pen purchases a year, especially with more serious fountain pens. And I hate to make that kind of distinction, but what I'm sort of saying is if you're writing with a Pilot Varsity, it's, you're going to need a lot of them. But if you're buying a Pilot E95S and then a Pilot Custom 823, and then you get an Esterbrook and you want a Scribo, which I don't have, and an Aurora and all this, and you just keep buying them. I just think it's a bit too much. I feel like you can't really absorb it. You can't integrate it into your life. You don't have time to get to know it, to form a relationship. Some of my fountain pens, I don't really have to think about. You know how some pens, you pick them up and you go to pull off the cap, but it's a screw-on cap, but then you kind of forgot it's not a snap-on cap, or vice versa, or some such. Or you go to piston fill one that maybe is a cartridge converter. It's because you don't know it. You barely met that pen. You bought it, you wrote with it for a few days, and then you were off to something else. Something just lured you away, seduced you to go on a different journey with another pen. 3 or 4 a year of really nice pens gives you time to write with it, to get to know its little idiosyncrasies. Every pen is quirky. Every pen has its own thing about it. I just feel like you need a chance. And if you're buying a new pen every week, I've seen folks that get into fountain pens, and usually the ones that burn the brightest going in also burn the shortest, I find. So if someone is really suddenly into fountain pens, and they were usually into something else before, but now fountain pens is their thing, and they buy like every Pelican out there, every Visconti, and they just keep buying, and they post pictures on Instagram, and they're holding like 5 Viscontis because they just went to the flagship shop in Florence, as I just did, and they cleaned it out because they were so excited. Barely got to know the pens. Probably 8 months later, they're out of fountain pens. All those pens are up on eBay, and now they're collecting typewriters or something. I don't know. This is fictional. I'm writing this character. But there are folks that are like that out there. And I would just say, pace yourself. Don't burn yourself out. 3-4 pens a year is enough. And, for me, I told you all, I shared with you that I actually bought that Mont Blanc Wes Anderson pen because I was so curious, even though it set me back $2,600. And it looks tiny. The thing looks teeny tiny. So I don't know what kind of video you'll see from me next spring on it. It might be, look what I wasted $2,600 on. It could very well be that. And by the way, that would probably be a more compelling video than if I like it. But whatever it is, it'll be a Wes Anderson style. So since I did that, I'm trying to hold back on other fountain pen purchases, but that's not easy, especially with Black Friday sales. And I was looking at Atlas stationers, and I was looking at the Curating. I forget the exact name. Maybe somebody in the comments can help me in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this after the fact. But is it the Curating Paris Nights? Is it Paris Nights? It's something like that. Paris-y something. It's got this beautiful, shiny, wavy cap, beautiful body. It's a Curating. It's gorgeous. I wanted it so badly. It was so inexpensive on Black Friday. I just wanted it so badly. And I didn't buy it. I put it in my cart. I was considering it. And I just didn't do it because I'm trying to be more disciplined and I'm holding out until the Mont Blanc comes, which is in spring. Okay, I need to recognize Rick Harsh with a Canadian Super Chat for $5 Thank you very much. He says, I bought myself an early Christmas present the other day, a Platinum 3776 Century Kanazawa Haiku fountain pen, Shoya Dragon God. Wow, that is awesome. I have one of those. Mine has the tiger on it, and it's a very, very cool pen. Those are beautifully crafted. They're one of the best bargains out there, I think. That's a great pen anyway. Platinum's nibs are next level, And that is a great pen, my friend. I wish you a lot of luck on it. It's beautiful. So congratulations on a great pen. Moon Lover says, Reflections of Paris. Is that what it is? Okay, probably. I often scramble things, but I want that pen so badly. But I can't do it. I have to wait. I'm trying to justify this money I put out for the Mont Blanc by waiting for it. So we'll see how far that gets me. But I'm trying. Okay. How did you guys behave on Black Friday? Were you good? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about your purchases. Let me see. Ooh, Debbie Pogorski didn't buy a pen on Black Friday. Good for you. Spent money on Fountain Pen Day. Okay. Well, you know, what are you going to do? Okay. So here's another thing I wish I knew back at the beginning when I first got into fountain pens that I would have done differently. And that is, and this is no disrespect for those of you that like them, this is just me personally. I wish I didn't buy so many disposable fountain pens. I know those varsities are great, and they are, but I don't like disposable things. I just wish that I wasn't wasteful. I like part of the reason that I'm so into fountain pens is that they are renewable. You can fill them up. You don't have to throw them away. You could use one pen for the rest of your life, but the fact that we all own hundreds kind of negates that. But at least they're durable. And I just wish I didn't toss so many pens when I could have bought like a Lamy Safari or something. Let me recognize Marcus Souza with $30. Thank you, Marcus. Good night, everybody. Tim, what about a video with your opinions about fountain pen books? I don't have too many fountain pen books, but yeah, I mean, that would be fun. I'm always up for anything that has anything to do with us. So thank you, Marcus. That's a brilliant idea. I just need to get some more. Need to get some more of them so that I can talk about them. Thank you, my friend. Thanks for the support to help keep the lights on. I appreciate it. Elizabeth Pilgrim with the 4 pens. Good job. Good job. Okay. So I wish I didn't toss some pens. Here's another one. I kind of wish my first purchase in the fountain pen world had been a TWSBI Eco. I think I would have spent a lot of less time sort of chasing my tail for this perfect experience, this kind of whole experience that TWSBI Eco affords you. That one pen gives you such a wide breadth of what fountain pen writing is about. For one thing, whatever specs Yovo is making those TWSBI nibs with, it is one of the smoothest nibs anywhere compared to any pen at any price, especially the stubs. Brilliantly smooth and just a joy to write with. They're also fun because you could throw any ink in there and it's not going to be an issue if it clogs. You can field strip it, you can clean it, put it back together. Piece of cake, no problem. And something like a Diamond 580 is even easier to clean. So I often wonder if I had bought a TWSBI Eco first, whether or not that may have been my only pen for a few years. Because, I mean, if you're going by value and you're just going by pure writing experience and the joy of it, you have to buy kind of a Pilot Custom 823 to better it. It's just that good. So yeah, I kind of wish that the TWSBI Eco was my first love, my first fountain pen love. Troy says, I love my TWSBI Eco and I purchased after your review. Couldn't agree more. Hey, thanks, Troy. I'm glad I was able to kind of inspire you and show you a new direction to go. So that would be good. Alan Paris says, was a TWSBI available 30 years ago? No, they weren't. But don't get into details like that. This is just if I were starting like now, like 30 years ago. We're not it would be very limiting. There were whole different fountain pen options in those days. Although if I could go back 30 years, Alan, I would buy like a whole rack of Watchman Edsons. If I could turn back time, as Cher might say. But yes, TWSBI Eco could have been my last fountain pen purchase. I might not have had a channel, or it might have been TWSBI Ecos every week. Who knows? Now, this is a big one, and I think you'll enjoy this. And maybe you can relate to it, maybe you can't. But this is all me, okay? I kind of wish that 30 years ago, I wasn't so sanctimonious about being a fountain pen user. And the reason for that is, in those days, I got into fountain pens because I was trying to emulate old-fashioned writing. I've always been obsessed with the last century, especially the mid-century. I'm really into history. I'm really into like mid-century architecture and writing, like Ernest Hemingway and the Chrysler Building. I mean, my mood board would just be full of the Great Gatsby and streamlined cars from that era and the design and typewriters, all those sorts of things. I just was into them so much, but a big part of my life also is film and classic film. And I have seen every golden age of Hollywood film I possibly could. So when I got into fountain pens, I was walking in those footsteps. I was Bogart in the 1990s. There wasn't the same community that I was aware of as there is now. I'm sure there were, but I was very insular, and I wasn't necessarily on the internet. What internet there was in those days would have been probably message boards would have been around, and I wasn't on a fountain pen message board. It didn't really occur to me, but I was thinking like I am like cool because I'm into these older values, and I wear a fedora and a suit and whatnot, and I have my fountain pen, and I'm like this unique individual and stuff. And it's kind of quaint now when I think about myself trying to impress people, because that's something you do as a young man that you definitely you should learn to give that up fairly quickly. But I sort of wish I was a little more curious and a little less like kind of self-satisfied, thinking that I was doing something so unique, especially since fountain pens were still selling fairly briskly in those days. But there you have it. I kind of wish I had dug in more from an academic point of view. But you learn, right? Life is about evolving. And speaking of kind of message boards, Discord server is kind of an updated message board. And thanks to lovely members of this channel, who I will credit if you'd want me to, but I'll wait until I hear from you. They put together a Discord server for Hemingway Jones and the channel. And there's like a Q&A there where you can ask me some questions. And then there's areas to talk about fountain pens and all this. And if you go into the community section, the latest post has the link there. And I'll also say one more housekeeping thing too. Cognoscenti and Illuminati members of this channel, we're having a Zoom meeting at 4 o'clock on December 14th. That's a week from Saturday. So I will be putting up the link to that Zoom meeting in a post in the community section that only Cognoscenti and Illuminati members will be able to see tomorrow. So just so you guys know. And I hope as many of you can join as possible, because it'll be brilliant. And if I can get a hold of the feed from that, I'll post it on the wider channel. So that'll be fun. So you have to keep your language, or who am I kidding? I have to keep my language clean. You guys are nice. So let me see. Yeah. All right. So here's another thing. And this is almost a little bit of a contradiction from what I just said, but it is true. And this is that I wish I had gotten. I hate saying had gotten. I wish I had been inspired to start exploring vintage fountain pens quicker than I did. So as much as I was into the golden age of Hollywood and life in the 30s and the 40s, the vintage fountain pens that I was encountering in those days were mostly fixer-uppers. They were ones that you would see at yard sales or estate sales, and they weren't the beautiful, pristine ones that you see on Peyton Street Pens and other sites. So it seemed like an insurmountable task for me to buy one of those, restore it, and use it, even though I was very curious about it, and it would take several years for my journey to progress and for me to get to the point where I thought, well, if I really want my handwriting to look as if it were written 100 years before, then maybe I need a writing utensil from that time to properly express it. Now, none of that's true, by the way, because you could do it with a Blue Dew pen. You could do it with any pen, really. But that's my path. I actually have found that my handwriting does look the best with, in my opinion, my Waterman 5 in celluloid. And part of it is that one has a flex nib, and the nib itself is a little beat up from the years, so it gives it this slightly oblique nib. So I can do a really faint line, but if I dial it down just a few more gradations, it gives it this like oblique line that just gives it a tremendous line variation, even without any kind of pressure that you can put on it, since it is a flex nib. So for whatever reason, that pen almost looks like a dip pen when I write with it carefully, or write with it with abandon, which seems to be the two ways. If I write with it carefully or with abandon, I get tremendous results. If I write self-consciously, I get kind of uniform results no matter how I write, no matter which pen or anything else. The sad part is that when you add a camera to the mix, then I'm writing self-consciously. So, but boy, that pen. So I wish I had been braver and bought more vintage pens, because like vintage typewriters were easier to come by in the 90s. Vintage books certainly were. I bought a lot of my books, my Hemingway, up to the side, my Hemingway first editions that you can see up here. Most of those were bought in the early 2000s when they were easy to get. Now they're not so easy to get. So I kind of wish I dove into vintage pens quicker. So be fearless if you're starting your collection now, I would say. Why not? Stephen. Gwyn. I got involved with fountain pens when I saw a picture of some vintage Parker Vacuumatics from the late 30s and early 40s. Bought a few restored pens. Still think they're my most beautiful pens. Those are stunners. So that is a fantastic way to get into fountain pens. And I'm glad that you did it and you had the courage to do it. So good for you, man. Well done. Well done. Thanks for all the likes, guys. I see the thumbs up. That helps feed the YouTube algorithm. We want to keep YouTube happy. Okay, so along the same lines, and this is another thing I wish I knew at the beginning of my fountain pen collecting days. Along the same lines, when I first started, I wanted to emulate that vintage handwriting, but somewhere along the way, I got off my path. And I started to get into this mindset that there was always a better pen that would do something more for me. And as any photographer will tell you, that you can take a fantastic picture with whatever camera's in your hand. The best camera is the one that you have at the time you take a shot. It's sort of like when I did night photography in Italy, and people used to ask me, how do you take these beautiful pictures? And I would say, well, it's easy. It's not so much me. I just point my camera at beautiful things. Fountain pens are similar. If you can write beautifully, then the pen is more beautiful. It's the product. It's part of the joy of this hobby. And for me, I accidentally fell into that Grail Pen escalator where I felt like I need to move up to this pen. And, I have the Pilot Custom 823. Well, that was only a few years ago, but whatever it was, like there were certain pens and I felt like if I just get whatever Grail pen, everything will be great and my whole life will be complete. And it's just not the case. My handwriting is still a work in progress, as you know, because I share that journey with you, and I will again. I have a video coming up on it. But I think one of the things that I've learned in my dotage as I approach my 60th year, 3 years from now, is that maybe it's not about writing perfectly. Maybe it's about accepting how I write perfectly and then just refining it. Maybe that's the path to wisdom for me. Handwriting enlightenment. Maybe that's it. Need a little water. So, I wish I had followed the nib. I wish I had concentrated my efforts on which nib I was using and going in interesting directions with the nib. I still think that is a solid piece of advice for anyone. If you get into barrels and you like pretty barrels and colors, I think that's fine. I think if you buy a lot of the same pens and then that's kind of where your effort goes, then your toolbox is narrowed a little bit. If you could try maybe a gold flex nib on like a vintage Watchman 52 or some such that would give you a wholly original experience. So you try different nibs that are going to steer you in different directions. That includes trying to shake it up with sizes too. If you're like me and for years you've written with a medium nib, try stub, a broad, a double broad, try a extra fine and see what it does to you. It might snap you out, make you want to go in a different direction. The pendulum swings and you swing along with it. I just think it's a kind of an interesting, it's an interesting idea. Debbie says should have gotten an extra fine nib with that Scribo. The one you bought in Washington, I don't know. I mean, there is a downside to it, Debbie, too, which we all know, and that's what if you didn't like it, and then you bought your dream Scribo with a nib you didn't like. So, and you love your pen, just enjoy it. Enjoy it. Karen says, handwriting is a personal and unique expression of self. Very, very true. And I think we beat ourselves up a lot with these, with this process of trying to be a better writer. Or at least I do. I'm projecting. So when I use the rhetorical we or you, I'm really talking about me. I beat myself up a lot when it comes to writing. And I really should just enjoy it. Sometimes I'm so proud. I just dash something off and I'm so proud. So let me just keep doing what I do. Okay. Here's another thing too. And this is something that's sort of surprising. You might hear from me. But if I were starting my collecting now, I wish I had gone mid-level quicker. I spent a lot of time buying more accessible fountain pens when I could have bought something like the Pilot Custom 823 quicker. Or the Waterman Quran I bought pretty quickly. But even still, like, there were a lot of pens that were out of touch. And I wish I had sort of saved and been more strategic. And the reason is that I think sometimes you defer your dream by settling for something else when you, meaning me, you need to pay your dues sometimes and save and sacrifice a little bit. Maybe you save and you don't do other things and you save up for that better pen than just, feeling the pen itch and scratching it with another pen of the type you have. So I do wish I had gone mid-level And I say mid-level. I'm putting a Pilot Custom 823 mid-level, but there's a lot of arguments that it's the best pen out there. So in this case, I'm speaking mid-level price-wise, okay? Meaning that if you buy a Safari and you go, hey, I really like this hobby, I'm going to go buy a Pelican M1000. That's a big leap. But if you go, I really like this hobby, I'm going to get a Pilot E95S or a Pilot 823, I feel like financially you're gaining a lot. You're gaining a pen that you'll have for the rest of your life that just writes exquisitely. And maybe you stop there. Maybe I would have. So that's something, I think. Tom Morley's a stub guy. Very good. This is a funny one, and I think it's very true. And I think those of you who are a fan of this channel will appreciate where I'm coming from with this. And that is, I wish I had bought a Lamy Safari quicker. I really do. I bought Lamy Safaris fairly far along in my fountain pen journey. I think I got my first one like 3 years ago. And the reason is the triangular grip put me off for years. I'd see it and I'd be like, that grip is funky. I don't think so. And I sort of looked at it in the context of like Dr. Grip. You ever see those? Are they gel pens that have those ergonomic grips? And I saw the Lamy Safari in that context. I've recontextualized it now where to me it's this mid-century icon with an in-house nib, beautiful lines, great craftsmanship at an incredibly democratic price of around $35 US. Why didn't I go in sooner? I kind of wish I did. I really deferred a lot of enjoyment. The calligraphy nib on the Lamy is brilliant. You put that on your Safari, it's so good. It's such a great writing experience. You almost don't need anything else. And it's such a tough pen. I like it better in aluminium, but it's great in plastic as well. So, yeah, I should have bought a Safari quicker. That's just me. Smoking Papa Cat says, sorry I'm late. That's okay, so was I. I didn't mention it earlier because I wanted to get the show started, but I don't know what happened. I had a total technical breakdown, so I couldn't get into the live on time. So, sorry about that, guys. But I appreciate you all sticking around. But I didn't want to put that at the beginning. I just wanted to get into it, so I'll tell you now. Okay. Here's another thing, very, very important, I think. If I were starting over and doing my pen collection, my pen selection all over again, I would pick a Grail pen that suits me. And I would make that my focus for my first Grail. And then I would limit myself to maybe one Grail every other year or once a year if we're really on a buying spree. You guys know that I tend to buy a few a year, Grail level pens. Curiosity drives me. It's always what's driven me my whole life on every one of my adventures. But yes, when it comes to Grail pens, instead of listening to the prevailing wisdom of what is the best pen, I think I would study them for their attributes, for which one suits me the best. And when I look at my collection of Grail pens, if I had to keep one and get rid of one, I'm not sure. I kind of know what it would be right now because I'm so obsessed with the Watchman Edson, but I couldn't let my 149 go. I couldn't let my Egyptomania go. I adore those. It'd be hard to choose just one. But which one would I start with? I don't know which one is the most me. As a matter of fact, that'd probably be a great topic. And I'm going to think about this now that I have thought of it. I'm going to ruminate on this and see what I can do with this concept. But what is the perfect Grail pen for me? Tim Steiner, banker, YouTube video creator, avid journalist. What would be my perfect Grail fountain pen? Removing all cachet, all associations, all heritage and everything else. the attributes of the pen versus the needs of the writer. That's what I'm talking about. Which one would suit me best? Aesthetics rule with Grail pens with me, though. Because when I think of all mine, I think which one suits me best. I think of the Mont Blanc Egyptomania. Because I just love Egypt, and it's charming. And it reminds me of a pen of 100 years ago. And those Mont Blanc Heritage Nibs, if you haven't written with one, borrow one, buy one. If you're brave, I suggest picking it up used. But they're soft. They don't really give you line variation, but they are a stupendous writing experience. So I cannot say I can't say anything bad about them. I just adore them. So that's kind of what I would do there. I would restrict myself to one Grail pen, where that Grail pen suits the needs of the writer. I like this concept. I got to remember this because this is going to come up again. It's kind of why I like these lives. I hash out things in real time, and then I end up working more on them later, and they come up in videos, and sometimes they form their own videos. So this is another thing. I wish if I could turn back time, if I had a TARDIS, or if I could start over again now and I didn't know anything about fountain pens, I would approach it more like a capsule collection. And what I mean by that is I would think of it as my perfect 4 or 5 fountain pen collection. So I would see how they interconnect, how they speak with each other, how they interact and form a cohesive collection. So say if you have 5 fountain pens, what would you need in that grouping? What would you need? Well, you'd need a very robust travel pen. You would need a business pen, a very fine, elegant, beautiful, showy pen, like a Sailor 1911L or a Mont Blanc 146 or 147 in Bordeaux, something like that, or a Pelican M1000. You would need a really good, solid, all-around writer, like a Lamy Safari, something you could put in your bag and not worry about and just really enjoy and kind of abuse a little bit. You would definitely need that. And then you would also need a kind of a artistic pen, like something where you're writing your Christmas cards, you're signing your name, something like a Blue Dew pen with a flex nib, or a Magna Carta Mag 600, something like that, which would be just an absolutely brilliant fountain pen. And then you would need a Pilot Custom 823. So those would be your 5 fountain pens in sort of a capsule collection. So there you have it. Oh, I have to recognize somebody who does a lot for the channel, Puppet Access. Thank you very much. Says, I don't really have a Grail since I got my pleasure from the variety in my collection over any single one. I think that's brilliant. That's a great way to approach it. The fewer wants you can have, as you probably know, just make you happier. It's just better to kind of enjoy what you have. But thank you for that $5. Helps keep the lights on. They're burning brightly tonight, so thank you. I really appreciate it. I love water now. I used to drink sugary drinks, and now I'm obsessed with water. It's almost novel to me, because I never really drank it. It's not strange. Sometimes you do learn new tricks as an old dog. I even started wearing jeans. I never wore jeans. I went probably 20 years with really not wearing jeans. Now I do. But only Levi's. 501s and 505s. And that's it. Nothing else. I just feel like they're the only jeans that look right on me. Oh, Puppet Access, you're going to like my next one. I could have written this for your last comment for that super chat, so thank you. I'm just going to read this verbatim, then I'll talk about it. I would curate my collection and not think about adding numbers, but rather experiences. I would also consider how these pens work together and complement each other. Travel pen, tough pen, dressy pen. So some of what I just said, but I think the beginning of that is the important part. And that is that instead of adding numbers, I think about each pen as a new experience. So what is this pen giving me that my pens I have now aren't? So which part of the variety of owning this pen is life affirming? It's making me feel better about myself, is giving me joy. So that's important, I think. Fall Chris says, I just started my collection after spending a few months with Platinum Preppies. I chose a Custom Heritage 92 and 743. Well, in the immortal words from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you have chosen wisely. Because remember, as surely as the true Grail will give you life, the false Grail will take life from you. There's something to be said about that with pen purchases. You buy the wrong pen, it drains you. Doesn't it drain you? You ever get disappointed? You open up your fountain pen, you pull it out of the box, you ink it up, and you're, why? Why did I buy this one? I could have bought something else. I bought this. What am I supposed to do with this thing? It happens. It happens to all of us. ODE says, as a pen reviewer, often I get pens not in a curated way, not really for me, but for the channel because I think it will be interesting. Yeah, you know what, my friend? I think there's truth to that. I do that too, but it's often because of a narrative that I can't resist, where I see a fountain pen and I look at it and the video writes itself. Because as you know, it's not easy producing content and you need inspiration. And if a fountain pen gives you a certain amount of inspiration, even if it costs a few $100s, it's worth it. It just carries you along. So I can understand that. So thank you. And thanks for popping by tonight. I appreciate it. Oh, here's another thing I wish I knew 30 years ago. And I think this is very important for all of us. And it's, I would accept that fountain pens, quirkiness and even some issues are a feature, not a problem. And I'm saying things like some fountain pens get upset stomachs and they're going to burp all over your paper. And that's just a feature of lever-filled fountain pens. You need to be aware of that. And you kind of need to accept it, and it's part of the charm. There's no reason to get upset. And I'm not saying that you tolerate quality control issues. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying some fountain pens are mildly mad. So like the Peniter La Grande Bellezza with the quill nib, that fountain pen has this incredible soft nib that gives you no line variation. It doesn't make any sense. It's an interesting writing experience. It's just a feature. They're a little mad. They're a little crazy. Some pens, the nib is too close to the grip and you get a little ink on your hands or whatever it is. I just accept it. They're fun. They're quirky. They're different. They're all going to have their things. My Pelican M200 likes to wiggle out of its cap and destroy my dress shirts. So it's a feature. Hey, Ben Joe's here. Hi, Ben Joe. Hey, thanks for your note. You just sent me a note. Ben Joe's in the Illuminati and Cognoscenti Pen Pal group. That was very cool. I actually have it right here. I just read it. And you're always traveling. I don't know how you do it. I went to Italy for, 12 days. And by the end, I was so sick. Just had to get home. But you are always traveling, my friend. So good for you. All right. We have a few more to get through. And I'm really having a blast. I hope you guys are enjoying this. If you're enjoying it, can you let me know in the chat and in the comments if you're watching the replay? Because I'd appreciate it. One of it is, if I could start over, I wouldn't repeat some of the same experiences. I wouldn't keep buying pens with Jowo nibs. And I know I pick on Jowo nibs a lot. I love Jowo. I love Schmidt. I love Bach. I love all these nibs. But I don't need 50 of each, I could be okay with 4 or what have you. I don't know, like how many untuned, kind of not very specialized medium Yovo nibs does one writer need? I don't know, but it's not 30, which is probably how many I have. So I think if I were starting over, I would be seeking different experiences, the kind of experiences that the weird nibs give you, like the Pilot E95S, a very underappreciated fountain pen that is interesting, but very, very thin, very elegant. Has a lot of feminine energy, so you need to be okay with that if you have like big hands like I do. But I love it. I think it's elegant and beautiful and expressive. So I'm into it. Elizabeth Pilgrim asks, what's the age of your oldest bottle of ink? In 30 years, how many bottles of ink have you written dry? That's really an interesting... I don't know if you're asking me that question, but I'm going to answer it because it leads to something else. So I have bottles of Quink from the 1940s here, but they don't look like you could use them. I actually tried to ink up a pen. They're not very good. I do use bottles of ink until they're dry, but they're the ones I use. So Pearl Noir, Clay de Saphir, Diamine Oxblood, Mont Blanc Burgundy Red, Mont Blanc Midnight Blue, Mont Blanc Royal Blue. All of these I always am buying, always draining. A lot of my other inks, not so much, guys. Not so much. Some of them I do something on the channel, I get bored, I don't really touch them. In fact, there's a video coming up where I go through all my ink collection. I think you're really going to like that one. I'm not going to say anything else because it's one of those shocking and interesting videos. I don't want to give it away. I think you'll enjoy the shock of it. I could be wrong. Oh, Anna's digging the discussion. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. Like a Man says, big pens for big hands. See, you probably wouldn't like it then, my friend, honestly, because it's very, if you haven't seen it, it's just very thin. But I really love it. Okay. Another thing I would do if I were starting from scratch right now is I would look for fountain pens that have a unique experience. Unique, completely. And this is kind of where I am in my collecting right now. I'm speaking about pens like the Mont Blanc Bohème. There's nothing else like it. Maybe the Platinum Glamour too. That's a weird pen. You've seen it before. I'll show it again sometime soon. But those sorts of unique, interesting fountain pens where there's nothing else like it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from now. Oh, we got a super chat from the mighty Ben Joe. Thank you. Really appreciate it. $5. Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. Says, I travel and write a lot. My pen can't hold me back. It needs to allow me to be free and journal, write, and express. It can be a cheap or expensive. Indeed. But it needs to reflect you and your needs. The writer needs the tool to express themselves. So good for you. Thank you, my friend. Thanks for all your kind support. Ben Joe is gold. Thank you. The other thing is I would explore the secondary market much more. So I wouldn't be afraid to buy some used pens, especially cartridge converter pens, because what can go wrong? You just buy a new cartridge or converter in most cases. It's rare for somebody to mess up a feed. But not unheard of. But rare. So I would definitely, especially with something like a Mont Blanc or something, if I were buying another one... No, see, I'm lying to you guys. I'm saying if I were buying another one now, the only way I can really say this is I would recommend that you don't do what I do. I just spent $2,600 for the Wes Anderson fountain pen. What I would suggest you do is not to wait until people like me dump them on the market a year later. If the prices go down. With that one, they probably won't go down. But the secondary market is your friend for many fountain pens. And it's the only way to get a Waterman 52, a Waterman 5, a Parker Vacuumatic, and some other pens these days. So another thing I would do if I were starting is I would consider my choices. I wouldn't limit them to what's out now. You know, you watch a video from, Yost Appleboom and he's showing his latest offerings and they're really sexy and interesting, sure, go for one of those. It's the newest thing. It's super fun. Plus, Yost is a great guy. I love him. He's just a riot, just a really nice guy, just so you guys know. But also choose from 100 years of fountain pens. Choose a Watcherman 52.5 from the 1920s if that's going to speak to you in some way. Don't limit yourself to what's out now. Look at the whole history of these wonderful writing instruments of ours. That's my opinion. I would also throw this out there. I think if I were starting afresh, I would limit myself to maybe 25 fountain pens. I'm probably at the 130 or so right now. I've been trying to limit myself as it is, but I would do my best to limit myself to like 25 if I could. Just because I want to have a relationship with each. I want to have time to use them, to get to know them, to develop them. So that's how I feel. So in all that, I do want to mention I'm going to be selling a bunch of my fountain pens. Probably in January and February. I'll probably put them up on Instagram or maybe on eBay, but probably Instagram. Probably better if you guys get a shot at them first. But I really want to weed out my collection and get ready for the next years to come, because there are some pens that need to be rehomed. They're just not getting their daily exercise. They're not being allowed to do what they were intended to do. So I want to get them back out into the world. And there'll be some really interesting pens in that group. So I think be on the lookout for that. And I also say that I want to mention that my daughter just hit a milestone that I'm really, really proud of her. My daughter is 7 years old and lovely, and I know you guys have seen her on the channel. She is a writer. And she keeps a journal and a diary. She has several. We bought her one in Italy with a leather cover in a shop right near the Pantheon. Has an eye on it for her name, Imogen. But her journal that she was using before, she filled it. So she finished her first journal, which is just so exciting. It's full of pictures. It's full of writing. It's just amazing. She does share it with me sometimes. I don't touch it otherwise, but she likes to show me what's in there too sometimes. And sometimes she's under her bed and she's scribbling away in her journal, which I'm so proud of her. And I think it's a huge milestone for her to finish the first journal in her life. And to do it at 7, good for you, Imogen. Love you to pieces. So I think on that exciting bombshell, it's time to end this exciting episode of the Hemingway Jones Fountain Pen Show. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I'll be back next Tuesday night. I'm working on us having a guest. We're supposed to have a guest. Haven't had a guest in a while. So hopefully that will come to fruition. So new video on Thursday on traveling with $1,000 Montblanc fountain pen. Should you do it? So catch it. So I promise we'll see each other again very soon, my friends. Take care of yourselves. Much love. And I'll see you further up the road. Bye-bye.